Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Like I was listening to Michael Francesi. He's like an ex mafia captain, and I mean he's got a lot of subs, big freaking channel, and doesn't sound clear a lot of times.
The thing that I've been trying to fight against constantly, and while I've been doing it, I've been improving the quality of the audio, is me clipping when nothing's clipping. And every time I do a bit of research into it, I get to adjusting things. They do sound better, but then it still makes the exact same clipping. And I think it's clipping because I know what clipping sounds like, and it sounds like it's clipping. You know, reaching the limits of the rails or whatever you want to call it, the waveform is too big for the rails. I know what that sounds like. That's what it sounds like. So when somebody told me it's packet loss, I'm like, okay, but it doesn't sound like that. I mean, maybe that's what packet loss sounds like, but I'm still convinced it's clipping. Anyway, after the last discussion, the one with virus, I got it to the absolute minimum. So I'm too quiet when I'm quiet, but shouldn't be clipping when I'm loud. But it still did, and I kept a really close eye for the whole show, monitored everything really closely when I was getting loud, and nothing went over the limit. But what it did do is get too close to the limit. Now, Podcastage explained that when you take a signal into OBS that's not mono, i.e. it's just the left channel signal only, so you haven't got a full stereo signal and it's not a mono sum signal from whatever device you've got, then it just sees left only or right only, and you've got to do that in the software. Now, he's, in this example, talking about OBS, the broadcasting software, summing you to mono when you take your line directly into OBS, which I don't. I take it into Voice Meter Banana and sum it in mono there. So I click a button that says mono, and it's, instead of, let's just do it. So if you're listening in stereo, when I speak now, you can only hear me on the left channel, because this machine only takes me into the left channel, and then I have to press a magic button and it sums it to mono. The problem being that when that happens, what the hell, why is this, got all sorts of strange shit going on at the moment. So the screen flashes, I don't know why it started doing that since I updated OBS. I get screen tearing. Makes no sense. It's like I've updated OBS and all sorts of things don't work properly now. There we go, such is life. Anyway, when you do some things to mono, it's summing an infinitely zero signal, and that causes it, from what I understand, to actually clip at -6 dB. So you're like, okay. So in other words, if you breach -6, it'll start clipping. So where I've been looking at it to go into the red or go beyond 0 dB, it never does, but I know it goes beyond -6. So I've now set a limiter in Voice Meter Banana at -6. And I'm hoping that means I can turn me up a little bit, a couple of dB. I was at -3, now I'm at -5. No, I was at 3 and now I'm at 5. I've gone up 2 dB. Hopefully I'm the same level as everyone else rather than quieter. And if I do happen to start getting a bit shouty, there's a limiter to stop me getting too shouty and going, too high up the dynamic range of voice meter. And hopefully that means I won't clip. And I can see on OBS, it's still only going up to minus 5, which is, well within limits. It should sound glorious, even when I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. It should be fine. The compressors should deal with all that, and they do. But then you hear this, and you're like, that's so annoying.
The other day when you were going at it with you were just hammering virus. Alwyn says he's got us all on mute, guys. So we just started having a conversation, and then all of a sudden you say, "Shut up!" and you told us all to shut up. So I was like, "Oh, there goes that,
that was
idea
so
out the
hilarious.
window." What did he say? Shut up in G plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because what's happening
Felt
is
like I was in trouble.
if the gate's open long enough, you will just come through on the recording. If you're just jabbering away, what will happen is I won't talk, the guest won't talk, and then all that comes through to the audience is your little jibber jabber in the silences, because you're just talking amongst yourselves. Well, if no other gate's open, your gate will open, and therefore you'll talk and you'll be heard. Now, while
So you did have us on mute?
no, you're not listening.
Oh, okay, that was the whole point.
If no one else is talking, if me and the guest are talking, then you won't be heard in G+, right? But if suddenly neither of us are talking, then you will be heard because the gate will open and you'll be heard.
It was kind of funny though, because on the G Plus side of it, right, or on the Google Meet side, like we could hear each other fine, and you and Virus were communicating, I guess, if that's what Virus can call that. But like, it was almost like y'all were having a conversation in another room while they were talking.
Well, that is what's happening. So in a very literal way, you're in one room in G+, and there's a what do you want to call it? An intercom from that room to a control room where I'm sat, in between me and a different room, which is Discord. So there's the control room having a conversation with Discord room, which is to my right, and then to my left there's another room that can have a conversation. Now I can just open all gates, which isn't a good idea because it causes feedback, but I can, and sometimes do, and there's everybody talking between every room. Now that can work sometimes if everyone's really vigilant with their mute buttons, but often that just can't happen. It's just immediate audio chaos. But it doesn't mean to say that, in a pause, that suddenly, you're going to break through to the audience. You will.
Hey, Eli, you hit it right in the head. It felt like we got in trouble, right? Like we were getting yelled at by the principal.
Yep.
Yeah, you were having a conversation at the back of class, and I can hear you. I know you're jabbering away, but I'm keeping the conversation clean as much as possible for the audience. But it's like now there's a bit of background noise from Eli, who's got absolutely no mic vigilance whatsoever, and I can hear it. Eventually, I'm going to chuck a bit of fucking chalk at your head, though.
Well, it was kind of an important conversation because Virus, when you asked him about how do you acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent, instead of telling you how you do that, he's telling you that you can't do that, that you have to do something else. It's like, okay, you understand at some level anyway that you need a flat baseline.
Yeah, they're currently slapping it on top of a sphere and claiming the only connection between that flat plane that they're all detailing how it works is a single point that we've debunked with a black swan, the tangent point. So if you haven't got a tangent point and you're just justifying, oh, well, we can easily acquire a flat plane from a sphere. It's like, so to do this, you're going to need a plane, and then you're going to justify how you've got that plane, flat, Earth, from your sphere, with a single point and a flat surface levitating above a sphere at a single point. Yeah. Once you lose the tangent point, though, it's useless. The sphere beneath is useless. All you're doing is navigating on the flat plane bit that they've tried to justify how they've got it from a sphere, when intrinsically a sphere has no flat surfaces at all, ever.
Well, the one point that a plane can touch a sphere isn't the tangent, though. That's unless you move the the plane all the way to the right or left and have the edge of the plane touch the sphere, then it could be considered a tangent. But if you're setting it on it like it's a plate, I don't think that's quite like what they mean or what they're trying to describe.
That's what they're showing us in the diagrams, though, isn't it? That's what they show us in the diagrams, though. They show a sphere with a flat surface on the top of it, and all things that are being done in terms of celestial navigation are done on that flat surface, teeter-tottering on top of a sphere. That's what they're giving us as diagrams.
You know what's funny? I was explaining it to my wife yesterday, and I'm telling her that there are no flat surfaces on a sphere. That's the thing about a sphere. And she's trying to tell me that there is, and we're going back and forth. And out of nowhere, she says, well, if you cut it in half, then there's a flat surface. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's what they do.
That's the point of concession. That's
Exactly.
when you laugh and...
Correct.
That's the point of concession. The moment they say, well, if I start this process on a flat plane, but imagine that flat plane that I've done this angle from on the surface being in the centre of my rock that I think the Earth is, and then project the angle that I'm taking from the flat plane in the middle of the rock out to an infinite distance, then the rock itself that I'm at the centre of has no bearing whatsoever on anything. I just need the flat plane in the middle of it to match the surface with infinite stars, and the globe Earth bit in between having literally nothing to do with anything.
But that's not where we take the measurement, number one. And number two, if you're trying to get a fix, there's no way that those zeniths will be parallel with the surface. With each other anyways.
Well, even more to that, when the plane they admit to, right? That's where you need to get the angle from. But we take it from the surface. So we're not standing on an orange cut in half, taking measurements, and then putting the top of the orange back on and pretending like nothing happened.
On a slightly different note, if anybody is watching this and happens to be a YouTuber/streamer and they know why I'm getting the flickering screen tearing, because I've just noticed what's happening. It's like, for some reason, I'm seeing the background. So behind this window that's the display is this that I used to do the intro. It's just a nice moving screen should I need to remove everything all at once, and there's still some movement. Well, that's flickering through one of the layers. I can only imagine that that's an OBS issue, but I don't know. If anybody is aware why I'm getting screen tearing now on OBS since I've updated it, please let me know, because it's suddenly become from a nice, reasonably inoffensive background load of images just to keep something on screen to an epilepsy-inducing irritation. It's like, ugh. Anyway, sorry, enough of my moans. Just completely killed that conversation with a technical bit, but I wouldn't want to be saying it in the live show, so that's why I'm saying it now. That's why I want to get it off my chest, that's all.
Well, I'm waiting for Ted Man to say, I got some slides, Nathan.
He's just
Nathan, I got some slides of Master B.
I got them. I wonder if this screen tears. We'll see. Okay, I've got it up.
Yeah, so this is what you guys were just talking about. Cutting the earth in half and getting that plane. It's a protractor.
Right, perfect. So on the right, the right-hand image that Tenth has presented, you've got... They twist it at an angle. So the flat plane we're using is this line. And if I wasn't running this show, I'd take it into the iPad and just twist it back again. But I haven't got time. So this is a flat baseline. They've just twisted it to add to confusion. This is the infinitely expanded out globe of the heavens that you're going to be measuring in this instance. Well, the angle that you're getting is off this, and the sphere Earth they're putting in the middle is useless. It doesn't do anything. The angle's coming from this line. Yeah, so along this line, being the baseline, if you take it in the opposite axis, up to the dome of the heavens. So this is a celestial sphere working on a flat plane. Well, what's this bit doing? Well, nothing. The sphere in the middle is not doing anything. You need the flat plane to get the angle, and the star in the sky to measure it. Sod all to do with the sphere Earth, in other words.
You can go to the next one.
Perfect. So yeah, this is actually how it's done. Flat plane, star in the sky. Angle can only be achieved if the ground's flat. And it is in thousands of miles of direction in all directions if you're navigating the surface.
The next one, the Navy slide proves it.
Here we go. And this is the process. Flat area of equal elevation, angle measurement to the celestial body, GP directly below it at 90 degrees. Not possible on a sphere. Any of that. None of it. Can't do any of it. Reciprocating zeniths, well, they haven't got 90 degrees at the GP. Curved baseline for a curved Earth, well, then you can't measure this angle. It just doesn't work on a sphere. Earth's flat.
It's over.
And the last slide shows two circle of equal altitudes with two possible fixed positions.
Perfect. That's why all your maps are flat. This wouldn't work if the Earth was spherical. They project out what they claim to be a sphere projection onto a flat map, so it still works, because the ground is flat. And you wouldn't be able to measure an elevation angle to use any of these maps if the ground was curving, and it isn't. Go to Google Earth, draw out an elevation profile, look for your 8 inches per mile squared. It isn't there. It's mapped flat.
Next slide is the one that Virus provided us, validating our point.
Proving our point.
I don't know why that shows that way.
The line D would be curved on a curved Earth. It's not. It's curved on a circle of equal elevation that you're trying to figure out by looking at and measuring the angle to the star. And when you do the calculation, you've got a flat baseline to get the angle. You can't not have. This can't be a curved Earth. Otherwise, this wouldn't work. It's just that simple.
Show me in writing where it says that it cannot be done unless the Earth is flat.
Every one of them does. When they double speak after the fact, after they've described getting 90 degrees to the GP, measuring an elevation angle from a horizontal baseline, when they've described all that, they later go on to say, you can consider it a globe. Here's a diagram of a 90-degree angle with a curve cutting through it that's useless, making it invalid. But you see, you can consider that a great circle when it invalidates how you get this angle. And people go, look, here's how it describes invalidation of the very thing they've just described above. That means it's a sphere. You go, no, it doesn't. It doesn't work if you've got a great circle instead of a flat baseline.
It's crazy that they say we don't need a triangle. It's not triangulation. Only show two arms of a triangle and not do the opposite. And then when you go to whether it's a yachting magazine with people actually doing celestial navigation, with the person actually holding a sextant, with the people on the boat actually in the ocean, or to real navigation videos, they show a triangle. And the one that we always shown is the one that's teeter-tottering, which is killing them because that's a right angle that's teeter-tottering on the globe that doesn't belong there underneath it. And yet they say it doesn't need a triangle. Yet everything says it is. They're just in denial.
I've never seen...
that's a red herring.
I've never seen... At the moment, we're getting it... Oh, well, I'm not. If I am, I'm not paying attention to it. But people are telling me that they're getting it left and right. Proactive anti-flat earthers chasing us down from all angles, it seems. I can't remember who qualified this yesterday, but they were like, yeah, well, they've got nothing, so they've got to go on the attack. And you're like, that makes no sense to me. If you've really got no response, why would that install the confidence to go on the attack and chase people down proactively? Which is what's happening. I don't get it.
I've been saying that. It's got them scrambling, and they're seeking everybody out to try and get this matter resolved. But there is no resolving it to sphere. It's over.
Well, the reason they're doing it is because they recognize the problem, but they still want to hold on to the belief that it's a sphere.
You reckon that's what it is? You reckon they recognize the problem?
Of course. I mean, a 3-year-old could recognize the problem. It's glaring.
I mean, the problem, they could even recognize the problem at refraction, because when they begin to argue and someone, points out, so what you're saying is there is no geometric horizon. It's over right there. especially when you're looking at celestial navigation. It's like, well, there must be a geometric horizon because that's what they're measuring the angle off of.
Well, that one they can go into a paradox and keep looping it over in their mind, and it just heliocentrism's filled with all kinds of paradoxes. They can't. The reason they want to argue about triangles instead of the actual argument is because if they can somehow get you to mess up or say something about the opposite line you don't draw or do draw, then all of a sudden you can get an angle from a curved adjacent and they can forget about it temporarily.
Yeah, they want to move past the actual acquisition of the elevation angle, which requires a flat Earth. Tell us we're just getting hung up on it, and then tell us how the way you can utilise that flat Earth angle can also infer use of it on a sphere. You're like, what, after you've acquired it? Oh, don't get hung up on that. Us having to measure it off a flat plane first to then infer reciprocal zenith angles, for instance. It's like, no, that's what you're doing afterwards. You've got to first measure the angle, though, haven't you? You're not measuring it with a zenith mirror. You're measuring it with the horizon. Now, their horizon used to be a geometric sphere edge. Not anymore. And when they infer it and say we're correcting to it, they lie, bastardise the actual dip correction, more accurately described as height of eye correction. They claim that they're correcting from a geometric sphere edge again. No, 2 years of refracted lines, you're not going to be correcting those bent lines to a different angle. It's not an angle to begin with if you're claiming all the lines are always bent on a sphere Earth as per terrestrial standardised refraction, sphere-shaped air light always bending. So no, you're not going to get around it by saying you're correcting from a geometric point that's down from your eye line with a straight line and a tangent to it to draw out a massive plane. You haven't got any of those things. But what you're doing it for? To draw out a big massive plane? Oh, we can get as big a plane as we like from our sphere. Well, you could when you claimed a tangent and had one to claim. Black Swan. It's game over for your tangent. Died 2 years ago. But yet now you need a straight line. You're going to appeal immediately to straight lines you don't have. It's a comical end to the debate, as far as I'm concerned. Like I say, I didn't like hanging my hat on any of the flat Earth proofs up until now. All of them valid. But now I will. I'll say, yeah, this proves flat Earth. What are you going to do? Tell me how you can get a flat plane from a sphere? Well, just do it on a sphere. Well, no, I can acquire a tangent plane. What do you mean you're going to describe how a flat Earth works, teeter-tottering on a sphere? Just do it on the sphere. What's that, you can't? No angles to acquire ever? Well, then it's game over, isn't it? Flat Earth. Proven. Done. Job. Done. Save it. Over. Completely.
That's the perfect thing you just said. Just do it on a sphere.
They can't. They justify how they can acquire a tangent plane. That would be a flat plane to actually do it on, and claim that a single point, it matches the sphere. One single point. That we debunk with the Black Swan.
That's why I said the Sexton argument will lead them right back to the Black Swan. It was just too easy. What image do you have up on the screen?
I had all of them up and to date. Which one do you want to talk about?
Go to the teeter-totter after Virus's slide.
Yep, got it.
All right, so you got the teeter-totter, which is not from any flat Earth site, but a navigation site on YouTube, because it's telling you the relationship between the navigator on the boat to the GP of the star and the angle measurement. And so when they come and say it's not a triangle and it's not triangulation, they're dead as dead can be. So then this guy, who's not a flat earther, on his navigation site decided to show what it would look like. It's the funniest thing you ever saw, but it is what it is. Next slide. So then that would mean these three circle of equal altitudes, which they've got curving on a sphere, can never happen because the previous slide shows it has to have a flat baseline to each one of these to the observer. So GP1, GP2, and GP3 to that middle where they all cross, where the observer is, has to be that flat baseline of that teeter-tottering triangle. Well, can't work that way. We all know that. So this is faulty. Next slide. Shows the Earth cut in half. And what do you know? It does work this way. So you see those red lines with the arrow points on the flat equatorial horizon, the flat baseline needed. And now you can have it work and not be teeter-tottering. Interesting. That should be on the surface, though, but not on the center, cut in half, because then you're only validating you live on a plane, not on a curved sphere. Next slide. So then when you look at a protractor, you can see that the arc minutes and the arc seconds and the degrees are marked. And really, this is what we live on. We live on a flat plane. And the way our perspective and the way degrees and angles are, there's your arc, but the base is flat. Welcome to Flat Earth, everybody.
Epic, thank you. I trimmed out some of the bits from the Homier or whatever he was called and Virus from a couple of days ago. So I've made 3 clips so far. One of them I've published to members, and I'll publish the other 2 to members over the weekend, and then the ones that are members only will turn into public videos over the weekend as well. So there you go. So they'll come out over the weekend.
Did someone, since I didn't catch that whole show, did someone say he said, oh, you just draw another straight line somewhere in the dialogue?
Oh, there's loads of epic quotes. But yeah.
I've noticed.
Go on.
I was going to say, I noticed that it seems like this curved adjacent arguments lit more of a fire under their ass than 3 Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. They're proactive attack with nothing to hold up other than I can justify how I can get a flat plane and still have a sphere underneath it at a single point. Their best effort is to justify using a flat plane because they must. But look, there's still a sphere beneath. Honest. It's not used for anything. But I can have it there, dangling below the flat plane we're using.
Well,
Yeah, because it has to do with navigation across the plane that's supposed to be a globe, for goodness sake. You know, so while having someone just say, well, provide proof, well, you won't accept my proof, so I won't come forth with it, is the common stance. But you kind of can't take that stance when you have flat earthers saying, no, look right here. All the mariners say that this is to be done on a flat plane. Look, here's the manuals right here. Look at the diagrams. You can't let that lie. You have to do something about that. But they can't do anything about that. It just exposes that we most definitely do live on a plane.
That's their cop out, Eli, that we don't accept any of their proof. We don't accept it because it's not proof.
I disagree. Hang on, Nathan. I disagree with it's not being used for anything. All the manuals for the sextant, as well as navigation, heliocentric style books, which is all of them, show that sphere underneath the actual methodology of celestial navigation for deception purposes. So it is being used for deception purposes. It's just not being used for celestial navigation, as the next 2 slides I put up will show.
Okay, got your bubble.
Yeah, so we know that, and we'll finish up with the third I just added. So we know that you got to have the bubble sextant showing horizontal. So there you go, right there. So how do you do that on a curved surface? Go to the next slide. Well, you can't. So you do it from the equatorial plane. You say it's coming from the center of the Earth. Well, what's at the center of the Earth for them? It's not another little ball. They've cut the globe in half and made an equatorial plane so that you can have that plane to get the angle, to get the triangle. So you're basically saying the Earth has to be flat, like the bubble shows horizontal. Now, if you go to the last slide.
Before we do go to the last slide, as Adam's on the panel, hey Adam, when you do this and claim that you're taking it off a tangent plane, so you're still doing it off a flat plane, labelled horizon in this, that's where it's being calculated to with a 90-degree zenith. This is why they want to take reciprocal zenith angles. However, this angle is the angle, the one that's coming from the centre of the sphere Earth that doesn't exist because we're doing it off the equatorial plane in this example. This is the actual angle. The angle they claim to come from the surface doesn't match the angle that you actually measured on the surface. It only matches when you take it to the presupposed centre. Now, they make it negligible by pushing the stars out to a distance beyond their claimed distance in the heliocentric model, proving that their distances to the stars don't work either. Because when they try and justify this incorrect angle that does not match from the centre, they transpose it back up to a tangent plane and suddenly the angle doesn't match. Correct, Adam?
You can never hit that bloody mute button fast enough. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what we were discussing yesterday.
It's not correct. They want to say it's negligible. It's not the same. It doesn't match. What does match is the angle that's taken from the equatorial plane. So you'd have to be standing in the centre of their rock. Well, if you consider that the centre of their rock isn't actually in the middle of a rock, because you couldn't be, and actually the surface, then the angle you get from the centre of their rock when you consider it a flat surface is the same as the angle measured on the surface. So let's just consider the equatorial plane the surface, because that's the only way you'll get an angle, and they have to project it to it with an incorrect angle then on the surface when they project it out to a globe Earth. So it simply does not work, even when they do it in this way, to justify the angle from the centre of an equatorial plane. It then doesn't match their surface, no matter which way they dice it, infinitesimally small if they project the lights out to an infinitely distant place. Still doesn't match. What's that? Negligible. Doesn't match. Simple. Don't care if it's negligible after your infinite distance application. Last slide. Oh, last two slides. Sorry, 10th.
Yeah, it's all right. Just comment on what you said. All the tables that they go to are pre-calculated from the plane at the center of the Earth. They're never calculated from the curved surface that doesn't exist. So even their books are telling you that once you do this, this is a pre-calculation from the center of the sun to the center of the Earth. So it's the center of the Earth, but not in the way they want you to think of a sphere, but because there is an equatorial plane there where they can actually get an angle, which is really the surface that your sailor or navigator is actually doing it from. But because of the drawings and the deception, they think it's coming from the center and not the surface, but it's really the surface is the center.
But if you took this angle from the surface, which is claimed to be the centre of a rock in the middle of a sphere, and then you transpose that up onto the surface of that sphere you think you were standing in the middle of when you measured that angle, it suddenly doesn't match. And the get around is, well, they're infinitely distant. Well, no, you claim to have actual distance. We don't claim distances, you do. But suddenly they've got to be infinitely projected out. And it still doesn't match. So it only matches if we've got a flat plane cutting through your rock and we ignore the rock outside's edge. And then we only look at the stars. So we can ignore this bit on the outside edge. It just does not match and does not work. The angles don't correctly match up with your assumption of light travelling in parallel lines to the centre of a rock that you can't measure this angle from. Where do we measure the angle from? The surface. So the only way this depiction matches how we measure the angle is if we consider this flat plane dissecting a sphere in half to give you a flat plane, the only way you can get an angle, to be the surface. Earth's flat.
Deal with it.
Not to say that's not interesting, but like for someone just coming into this argument, it would be enough to know that you can't measure an angle from a curved baseline.
Correct. Fails immediately. Sphere Earth fails immediately in the celestial argument.
Such an easy win, huh, John?
Yeah, you can just park on that, you know, it's done. There's really no point in arguing past it because both sides have to accept it.
Welcome. Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Eli, Refracted Curvature, Adam Meakin, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon.
Everyone.
Beautiful day.
Hey, good morning.
Again.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning, good
What's
afternoon,
happening?
good evening, good night. Welcome one and all.
Is it beautiful weather there too?
Not especially,
Oh, it's over here.
but it's all good. Let's try and do a bit of housekeeping. Hopefully, if Brian's not here, the guy who suggested we go into a bit more detail on each of the housekeeping question, we won't get a bit of waffle that's detailed and intricate about the argument. We'll keep it specific about each particular question. Hopefully this will get more concise as we do it, and hopefully it's keeping you frosty in terms of why we actually have these questions. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No evidence we're moving whatsoever.
Okay, so we ask
Nobody
for
else.
axial rotation. So claim we have an axis, you're going to need an R value for that. And the axial rotation claim comes with the 2 reference frames required to have a Coriolis effect, which globe Earth is claimed to have. That would be you turning underneath stuff that's not attached to the turning Earth and seeming to drift away from your position because you're turning away from it on a turning Earth. Ergo, hot air balloons would drift away from your position as they moved into the air, and if you were in the hot air balloon, you'd have Earth turning underneath you, and a different continent would come to your position if you just hovered in the air. Obviously, that does not happen. We don't have 2 reference frames on a globe Earth that's turning, and we don't observe Coriolis effect, in spite of us being told we do so by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, example by footballs curving through goals, because you're turning beneath the ball. Earth turned beneath the ball, therefore it curved through the goal, that's Coriolis effect, but that would affect anything else in the air, including a hot air balloon in this example. That doesn't happen. We don't have a turning Earth. There'd be Coriolis effect if we did have a turning Earth, and we don't. Go ahead, Arwin.
Yeah, well, technically, axial rotation doesn't require a radius. What it does require, though, is an axis.
It does require a radius, you're wrong.
How?
The center of rotation to the edge point is the radius.
Yeah, but that's then presupposed. Yeah, if you're going to presuppose a globe with an axis, yeah,
Just
then
take the L.
radius, but-
Just take the L. Let's move on. Housekeeping, concise. Any evidence of the R value mentioned in the presupposition that we have an axis to rotate about? R value, Earth radius.
They say the physical nature of Earth blocks boats from the bottom up. Proof that we have a radius.
Well, the Black Swan killed that.
Okay, let's cover both of those. So there's a claim in the form of the begging the question, because it assumes Earth is curving. It's an Earth curve calculator. Proof of nothing, because it's begging the question. Perspective hijacking, because it takes it into a Muppet vision. That would be orthographic representation, where you see your side of your own head and the target in the same image. That's orthographic view. We call it Muppet vision. So perspective hijacking, that removes all aspects of angular resolution limits, aka perspective, from the calculation. Proven out by the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator having feet and inches or meters value ascribed to the target. Now in reality, when you look through a camera and get further away from something, it gets smaller. The angular size, that would be the apparent size, decreases with distance. In the curve calculator, it remains the same feet and inches size, actual size, because they've removed perspective. So, With that claim in mind and a perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator to do it, they take an R value, Earth radius, and assume that the horizon is a tangent point, physical geometric limitation to your view, blocking boats and buildings. However, we have shown with the Black Swan that if the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to that geometric limitation tangent point horizon known as Earth curve could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as declared in their Earth curve maths calculations of a sphere Earth with a radius 3959. The Black Swan imagery shows the horizon beyond the limitations of their sphere Earth mathematics. Therefore, the horizon is not an Earth curve physical tangent point. Now, their response is to say it's refracted, but we'll get into that later. The Black Swan debunks the geometry and geometric tangent point Earth curve claimed in that maths. Hopefully that's covered both of your points, Brian, as concisely as I can at least. Anything more to add on R, Earth radius? On a similar vein, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Shout out to Mike 808 for hitting the super chat. Molten iron core evidence. Go ahead.
Oh no, there's none of that. No, you can't have it. You can't have a molten iron core because it's several steps after what you need to have the thing. You need to have a radius and a globe. You need, and then you need a load of information after that to come up with a molten iron core. I just think that they needed to make up a story to go along. They needed something for how does this globe keep rotating. They needed something, and how come we have this magnetic field and different things. They just needed something, so they come up with that. It wasn't their best work. But then again, no one can disprove it because you can't go to where they say it is, if you believe you're on a globe.
Or see the history of how they claimed it came to pass in the first place in a heliocentric model, with a planet named Theia smashing into the fledgling Earth at a glancing blow, its debris being formed by way of gravitational accretion into the moon we now observe, and its molten iron, juicy, delicious iron core being deposited to make Earth's iron core larger. That's the story of how we have an oversized molten iron core that's not cooled down in the heliocentric time frame. And it's true because they made it up themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it's true because they made it up themselves.
They'd need an R value for their scaling properties, so leading me nicely on to any evidence of the distance to the sun.
No, there's no evidence for the distance to the sun. It's not. At present, I don't know of any way to obtain it.
Well, they take a flat Earth angle measurement, insert their presuppositional R value for Earth radius into that angle measurement, and then apply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion after applying the same radius value assumed to be applicable to a sphere Earth that took that value from calculations off a flat plane, and apply that radius value taken from flat Earth angle elevation measurements and superimpose it onto Venus. Once you've got that light scaled, coincidentally, with the same R value as Earth, ever wondered, audience members, why they call Venus Earth's twin? That's because Christian Huygens decided arbitrarily that it had the same radius value as Earth, giving him the scale values in Kepler's third law. So he could give you all of the distances that you now ascribe to all of these planetary bodies, and that came under fierce opposition from people like Tycho Brahe. It'd have to be enormous! Cut to the video of all the different claimed to be suns, Betelgeuse and so on and so forth, getting massive. That's off the back of an objection from Tycho Brahe. What do you say, Tycho? They'd have to be enormous. Well, then let it be so. They're enormous. Anyway, distance to the sun. No?
Well, the thing about it is that what you just said there about Christian Huygens and all that. I mean, to do even what the calculations that he did, besides all the radius issue, to do what he did, he already had to pre-assume where the sun was. He already had to make pre-assumptions about how far away the sun is and how big it is. Now, I know that in the heliocentric model, I thought it was 3 times it had changed its size and distance, but actually it changed more than that. But it all does, like, I mean, the origin of it is the origin of this distance to the sun, it ties in with and is married to a two-way speed of light calculation that they try to claim as a measurement. Now, the most up-to-date, let's just say, two-way speed of light calculation is the most up-to-date one, but they had other ones before that. I mean, there was too many pre-assumptions made. Like, Kepler's analemma had to be correct for this to happen. And no matter what way they twist and turn it, it's an average distance from the sun is what the heliocentric globe has. An average distance from the heliocentric sun. Now, because they had to work off of Kepler's analemma.
Right, now you've mentioned the other two. So yesterday, although Brian criticised himself, as did others, for not being concise enough during the housekeeping. It's your suggestion to keep these concise and detailed at the same time, by the way, Brian. A tall order. But you've summarised the other two presuppositions. So there's 2 averages and 4 presuppositions that are employed. Is that correct?
For the two-way speed of light calculation, at present, there's 4. There is the presupposition we're on a globe. There's the radius size of that globe. The radius of the globe, given its diameter or circumference. There is the presupposition that it goes around the sun in an offset elliptical orbit, and it's the preassumption that the sun is a certain size and distance away. And
then there's 5, because there's also the presupposition, because you're talking about Kepler, about Venus having the same R value. So there's 5.
Well, yeah, you can say there's 5. I just named the 4, but there's 5.
It's AU, right? It's based on sun and its distance, right? Well, you only get that with the scaling value after. So yes, they already had Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion before they ascribed that, or before Christian Huygens did. So therefore they could scale it in anything. And you said, well, it changed 3 times. Well, yeah, that makes sense. But when you actually ascribe a speed of light value, you must have the scales all set down. And you only get that after that 5th assumption. So there's 5 assumptions. The 5th one being Venus has the same R value as Earth. This is still relevant to distance to the sun. This is just for anyone who's lost track.
Just to give the 2 averages, because they're the most important part for anyone who wants to really consider this as if the two-way speed of light is real or not. The 2 pre-assumptions is the first one is an average radius to the globe model, because there's 2. There's the dual radii of the equatorial radii and the polar radius, right? There's the average radius there, so that's straight away a calculation issue. But then there's the average distance. There's the most important thing out of all that: the average distance between the globe Earth and the heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. So that means no matter what way they twist and turn it, no matter what they come up with, the two-way speed of light calculation is an average. So I think Adam was going to say something there. Sorry.
I was just going to say that if we were keeping it succinct, then simply the answer is you're going to need half of that.
Indeed.
All the other assumptions, but most fundamentally, everything is defined, as you've outlined, from Earth's R to Venus's R to define an AU. So that then follows on to the next question, doesn't it? Because it's the same answer, because they go into the fields of astronomy, astrology.
Well, I'll ask that first then. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
So the answer then is you're going to need R, because all of that is based on the AU. So any distance you're going to ascribe in those fields, you are going to need R for that. It's going to fundamentally fall back to that.
Yeah, and that ordering may change in the housekeeping. It's just occurred to me that it was typically refracted curvature that would say, with a disclaimer, well, you're going to need R for that. But if I lead that conversation with the gravity question following it rather than leading it, you'll end up with a justifiable, you're going to need R for that, right? I may think of all of the housekeeping questions in a slightly different order, because it does make a difference to how they're received. Anyway, we'll consider that at a different time. We're trying to keep this concise and detailed. Let's move on to any scientific evidence of gravity.
You said. fundamentally the calculations are based on R, distance to the centre of the mass.
Scientific evidence of what?
Well, we don't have to justify it, Neil, as much as that's comedic. When it comes to gravity, there's not a soul in the Western world that doesn't know what we mean. Now, there might be misapprehensions when it comes to debating about it. Is it Newtonian gravity, falsely ascribed to the man, when it's actually C.V. Boy's Reverend John Michell and Cavendish gravity? Or the actual current rhetoric of Einsteinian bending's pseudo-force space-time? Well, either way, people know what they think that we are talking about when we say gravity. I don't have to say, well, the reason we discuss gravity in the flat earth debate is because it used to be the get out of jail free card that they thought they could use at every particular opportunity, but because they were falsely ascribing science to their claims, they never actually had any phenomena to observe and then independent variable to vary to cause it. It's furthermore now claimed to be an effect in Einsteinian's bending space-time. That's an effect, not a cause. So they've got a whole raft of problems and doublespeak in terms of gravity. That's why we ask, but I don't need to suggest why we ask. Right? Everyone knows that they use gravity a lot.
Well, I remember when I was just a listener, that used to get me all the time. I loved it. And you would just continue like nothing. Gravity. So kind of missed that guy, whoever used to say that.
Well, the reason for... Travis. The Plain Truth, subscribe today. The reason Travis would say scientific evidence of what is because if you contextualise it with scientific evidence, suddenly you're asking for a naturally occurring phenomena, something to observe in nature. Well, his response, of what? As in, what is it? Show me it. And you can't. Hence, it was an apt or appropriate response. Scientific evidence of what? Gravity? What? What's that? Can you show it me? What's that? Let's decide which one you're going to be talking about. Are you saying mass attracts mass? No, it doesn't. Gas defies that. What's that? Oh, you understand that's 107 years out of date. You actually meant pseudo-Ramonian's force space-time, a conceptual medium, being bent by the uneven distribution of mass. It's that effect that we can't experience because it takes place in a dimension that isn't real. Yeah, that's not going to have any effect on anything. That's not going to be shown to me in physical reality. There is no pseudo-force space-time bending. It's a dimension that doesn't exist. It's conceptual. So no, you're not going to be showing me that. So no, there isn't any scientific evidence. There's nothing to show. Scientific evidence of what? Gravity? Yeah, it's just a mathematical nonsense construct that has been employed to get around awkward arguments with a conceptual medium that doesn't exist.
Well, even further to that, the mathematical description has been invalidated when R was disproven.
Correct. They don't even have maths if they want to claim that it can be taken to the conceptual, as QE and yourself have recently pointed out. Well, what maths? The maths doesn't work, so it doesn't work in the conceptual either. Pathetic, really.
Yeah, nobody ever, like Einstein or Newton or anybody, never put forward a valid hypothesis for it. There was no hypothesis, I can't speak today, hypothesis test. You know, it was never put to a scientific method. Why? Why would you not try and why would you not try and prove your claim? Because the claim is, what caused it? Gravity. Right? But it's a word. What caused it? A word. I mean, it's a pre-assumption of this gravity thing that was never proven to exist in the first place. So what caused it? Gravity. What caused it? A word. Because that's all it is. A word. A word that keeps on having different descriptions attributed to it. Because they keep changing. You have to change. They're going on to their third one now, or fourth one. But they keep on having to change around what it's supposed to be. Because it's a nothing.
Speaking of nothing.
If it exists. Sorry.
I want to move on. I know you want to talk about gravity more, but I want to hopefully keep the housekeeping under half an hour. With the amount of detail we've got rammed in so far, it's been good. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container, and I'm hoping the next person to speak will explain why we ask it and in that phraseology.
Yeah, we asked that because we do have gas pressure. So that is impossible to attain without a solid container. It's impossible to attain gas pressure, temperature, or vacuum without a solid container. So that's why we asked that.
Perfect. It's a necessary antecedent. To have gas pressure, you must have a container. the consequent being gas pressure, the antecedent being a container to press upon in the first instance.
But why? Because in the heliocentric model, we live on a globe, right?
And, go on, you're nearly there.
And it's impossible to have gas pressure if we live on a globe with infinite space in front of us, because where and how could the gas pressure be contained?
It isn't. So what Neil's trying to say is that if there was an infinitely available volume of space, that would be space, a sky vacuum where they claim to travel to the moon and such, then the gas could also enter that availability of volume. In fact, that's precisely what gas does by way of natural law descriptions. Gas fills space. Entropy describes gas dispersion into a volume. Well, the volume would be the space it has. And irony of ironies, they call outer space space. Well, that would be a space for gas to fill. We'd all be dead. We'd have never had gas pressure in the first place to breathe if the sky was a vacuum. Gas would come out of the ground and immediately vacate into the vacuum. It would be 10 to the minus 17 torr at sea level. Always. Regardless of how much gas was being produced by the ground. It would just immediately vacate into space. Unless we had something for it to press upon and bounce back down again and then accumulate it en masse. That would be pressure. Well, you need something to press upon. A container. Without the container, there can be no pressure. And sky vacuums, therefore, are debunked. All claims from them are also automatically debunked. Any claims of travel, orbits, motion, pictures, all of that stuff that's claimed to take place in the sky vacuum, pictures from Earth, of Earth from space, automatically fake. Because the claimed region they were taken from is fake. Can't have a sky vacuum, we'd all be dead.
Yeah, very simply for anyone out there who is new, try to create, besides even trying to create gas pressure without a container, how could we have any gas cycles? How do we have an oxygen cycle? How could you have a cycle if we were surrounded by a vacuum, an uncontained, vacuum? It would be ridiculous. You couldn't have a cycle. It'd be impossible. You couldn't have, there's no point in arguing the point of a gradient. You need to have gas pressure to have a gradient.
What type of gradient? A gas pressure gradient, so also requiring the necessary antecedent of containment to achieve pressure, to then achieve afterwards, after you've got the pressure, the gas pressure cycle.
Yeah, we have several cycles that go on all the time. We couldn't have a gradient where there is a constant stream of gas gradually heading off out into outer space. That is not what happens.
Well, firstly, it wouldn't be gradual. It would be instantaneous. If we lost containment and had the pressure that we had at 14.7 at sea level or wherever it is, that would immediately dissipate if you had a hatch in a container and you open the hatch. Like if you pop a balloon, yeah, the gas immediately vacates. Or if you tear a hole in a car tyre, the gas immediately all vacates. Well, the same would apply. But we haven't got gas pressure in the first place to have it immediately vacate if you violated the containment. We'd just never have developed gas pressure ever. It wouldn't slowly dissipate into space.
Yeah.
Especially with the orbit around the sun, and you have the one part of the equator, the one that's away from the sun, at least at some portion of the day. And with that movement, I don't understand how there wouldn't be a difference between one side of the Earth and the other.
I love it. Phil Bell from the chat says, why does it not fill the space at 100 kilometres where the pressure is 0.000145 psi? This is effectively a vacuum, says Phil. Can somebody on the panel tell me what psi stands for, please?
Pounds per square inch.
A square inch of the vacuum? And that wouldn't be giving him a square inch to press on to give him a PSI now, would it? You'd need to be pressing on something to have a square inch of PSI value.
The units
Clown.
refer specifically to the container. It's pounds per square inch of the containment.
That'd be the vacuum.
Yeah.
That vacuum's the container for them, though, isn't it? Obviously, vacuums aren't very good at containing things. They're actually a space for gas to fill. But according to Phil, there's 0.0000145 pounds per square inch pressing on a vacuum. You dumb fool. No, you're going to need a container for that PSI value to be less at the top.
See if I understand that. Why is he not understanding that? Come on now, Phil.
Because he's a globe believer. He wants to believe there's a sky vacuum, so he's going to tell me how much pounds per square inch there is at the top near the vacuum. Pressing per inch of nothing. Because he's a complete idiot with a sphere belief, so he's going to be humiliatingly defeated in his argument with his own words by a flat earther live to an audience. That's what they're like. Shout out to Samuel Goat, who smashed the super chat and says, let's just bring it up for the audience, all flat earthers usually reply with atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric? Well, I don't know. Well, there might be some flat earthers that beg the question on behalf of their opponents with sphere-shaped air, atmosphere. Me, I like to point out where Phil Bell begs the question of sphere earth with an atmosphere, sphere-shaped air that he assumes when he's making his examples. Shout out to Godzilla37 also. He says, stop saying not, one, and start saying 000. You are confusing the heck out of us, North Americans. Don't follow you, Godzilla, but I definitely appreciate your super chat. Thank you very much for the support. Anybody else understand what Godzilla means?
Yeah, you're saying 0.1, whereas in America it's 0.1. So when you're saying 0.0, people don't understand you in America.
0.00145 PSI. Oh, that's better.
O is a letter. You just say zero.
Anyway, let's just move on with this concise,
Can I just say
detailed...
something about...
Go on.
I just want to say something about Phil. What
So
Phil
close.
wrote there... sorry, you want to say something?
I just want to get to the end of the housekeeping. We're so close to having a really concise housekeeping. It's my own fault. I involved Phil, but correct me if I'm wrong, we were talking about gas pressure without a container when he made that comment.
Yeah, we were, yeah.
Any evidence that you can have an elevation angle acquisition from a curved baseline?
No, it's impossible. It requires a horizontal baseline.
This is the one that, even if you had R for that, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, just faded off the screen. They've got an all bent, all refracted light coming into their sextant, which won't give them an angle, and a baseline that's all curved, always, everywhere, because it's a sphere. So spheres aren't capable of giving you an elevation angle measurement. You can only get an elevation angle measurement off a flat plane. Earth must be and is flat for celestial navigation to function. Now, the best get around they've got so far, and I kid you not, is to tell us how they can derive a flat plane from a sphere. In other words, oh yeah, we're definitely going to be navigating on a flat plane, but I can infer a flat plane from my sphere by X, in spite of the fact that when they infer it, they've already acquired an angle off a flat plane to infer it. So it's a devastating argument to end the housekeeping summary on. And correct me if I'm wrong, we've done this within 30 minutes of the live show going out. That's a good one. I'll trim that out just under 30 minutes.
I would like to make a slight correction. There is no debate about whether we're acquiring an angle from the surface of Earth. It's just delusion after that.
Yeah, you can delusionally state that it comes from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth on an equatorial plane. But ultimately speaking, you're describing something that you've measured on the surface as being at the centre of a rock to get the angle to be correct. And that's the only place it will be. If you then take that angle correct at the centre of a rock, it then doesn't match the angle that they put on the surface of the sphere that's redundant in the angle measurement. So it doesn't even match when they transpose a sphere onto that angle measurement on an equatorial plane, flat surface that you can get an angle to this stuff to actually navigate on the equatorial plane based on the stars that are projected out at an infinite distance if you've got a globe in the diagram that is then redundant and not used for any of the angle measurements. And if you did put the angle measurement that you did take from the centre of their claim to be middle of a rock, actually you standing on the surface, it doesn't work on their surface that they project out at 39, 59 mile radius. Suddenly that angle doesn't match anymore. So they have to project it out to an infinite distance, in spite of them claiming having distances with conversions from Christian Huygens' assumptions of Venus being the same size, Earth having a radius they've made presuppositions about, and Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion being capable of giving you distances to these values once you make those assumptions. Well, all of that crap doesn't entail anything to do with celestial navigation. All you do is measure an angle off a flat plane and then move to the position after you've acquired where you are. It's just that simple. Flat Earth required. Earth is flat. It's proven with celestial navigation. Shout out to Fibre Oats, who says, saw 10th's last presentation with sextant diagrams with all the flat discs in the middle of the sphere. Can't believe that anyone could still be a glober after that. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for the super chat, Fibre Oats. Really appreciate the support. So that definitely does conclude the housekeeping. So in the pre-show, we were talking about how our opponents don't have anything. The best attack on this subject is to justify how they get a flat plane to still have a redundant sphere dangling below it like a hemorrhoid. Well, that justification is their justification for using a flat plane. They will be still using a flat plane. And in Brian's experience, they'll justify an infinite flat plane with a tiny little globe Earth hemorrhoid dangling off the bottom of it when they do celestial navigation. So all they can do is justify how we'll still use a flat plane to do celestial navigation, but I'm going to dangle this off the bottom of it, this little sphere that's not relevant and doesn't work and doesn't give you the GP and doesn't give you an angle and doesn't actually function. It just meets it at a single point called a tangent that we debunked back in 2020 with the Black Swan. You're getting kudos from Fibre Oats, who says, thanks, 10th, with another super chat. Well, thank you, and I'll pass on your thanks as the audience gets to see it scrolling by. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for all the super chats, Fibre Oats. Also, Kiefer Green, who says, say tangent one more time. I can only assume that Kiefer Green is a channel member and is privy to some of the videos that I'm going to release over the weekend. So I didn't use the now tagged Pulp Fiction line in any of the edits, but in the members only full version of that 5-hour live stream, yeah, it rightly does get, should be compared to Pulp Fiction, because I basically say the same thing, not necessarily intentionally, but it presumably will be amusing. If I did trim it out, I won't. It's just too much swearing. Thank you for the super chat, though. Okay, I'm done shouting out super chats in case anybody was wondering when that would ever end. Really appreciate the support, everybody. Thank you very much for all those super chats.
Have you considered their position of nuh-uh?
Oh, somebody's put it up on screen. I couldn't stop that. I trust you guys. Hopefully the algorithm doesn't notice.
Oops.
Say tangent one more time. Yeah, Black Swan.
When that went up, you were proper raging. Where you was properly, and when that, I had to crack my sides because that's exactly describes the moment very well. That picture.
Well, my outrage stemmed from being told for 2 straight years, yeah, what you expect us to see a straight line? No, refracted. Well, after 2 years of hearing that, when they say, I've got a straight line, it's my tangent, then suddenly you're like, you're going to claim that again, Black Swan? Hello? Refracted? What is it, no Atmo Day? Once you've pointed that out, who's going to deny that they've spent 2 straight years barking and parroting refraction at us? Suddenly we've just got to forget that. Should we just shelf that? Those 2 years of you telling us it's all bent lines always? You just shelf that, right? Because you need a straight one for this. No. Oh, no, 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 no. Not at all. No. You just get slapped about with it. That's when you get asked to say
the hell
tangent
is
one
that
more
noise?
time. Yeah, like you got a gun against your head. Go on,
What the
Neil.
hell is that?
He lives what?
Somebody chewing?
Chewing what? What are you talking about, Neil? You having another flashback? Nurse, he's having another one.
That's a little surreal. Whilst Neil's there, I was late. yesterday.
Somebody's chewing something. I'm hearing it.
You smell toast, burnt toast. Okay. Well, that's good to know, Neil. I do like weddings also. Has anybody seen my camel?
Next Thursday.
Thursday? Perfect.
Yeah.
Moving on. Glad we got through the housekeeping for that slightly surreal event.
I'm serious. You just don't hear that background noise? Am I losing my freaking mind here?
Yes,
that's what we're
that
suggesting.
was subtly what we were very subtly trying to imply, Neil. But it was subtle, admittedly. Is it you? Have you got chewing gum in?
You missed my pun.
I didn't hear it at all. Sorry, go ahead.
Adam said Camel Thursday. I said, is that after the Over the Hump Wednesday?
Schrodinger Tuesday.
Oh my God, I got this YouTube on. That's what it is. I'm sorry. I thought somebody had their mic open.
No, it's you.
Freaking, my wife listens to these YouTube channels where all they do is eat food and talk about it, and that's what's on in the background.
Mukbang.
Sorry.
She listens
Yes.
to mukbang. Gross.
Exactly what was on.
Oh, I missed such a golden opportunity. I was gonna say, Neil, that's probably your ASMR in the background. But I said, meh, whatever. And that's exactly what it was. Oh, golden opportunity.
Unreal.
That's fair enough. Some people eat that stuff up.
Because I've
Oh,
done that
God.
before.
I'll recognise that, Nathan.
Okay, are we
Maybe
done?
that's how the ballers got their cosmic radiation. They had a YouTube channel on. And they thought,
Irony of irony. Now we're talking about this crap for whatever reason. Neil's
Sorry.
lack of vigilance. I get a chat from America, Silver Patriot. He says, "On point, Nathan." Gives me a fist bump. Yeah. Terrible timing, but I really appreciate the sentiment and support. Thank you very much indeed. It was a good first half to the show. I'm glad we did it. Where's Brian?
The America Silver Patriot.
America.
There was a patriotic point came up yesterday, and Tenth was pointing it out yesterday. And who would win the Civil War?
Oh God! The
just a
distraction of the
quickie.
media works. a charm, doesn't it?
Revolutionary War. Revolutionary War.
I've got evidence. Is all I thought that just share it. So, in November last year, war games were fought. Show you here. Pretty conclusive, America, yeah? 200 British troops took out 1,500, and they had to end the simulated battles in California a couple of days early because we won so quickly. So that's just modern. I assume we'll let you have that.
There you go.
So, 200 against
Okay.
1,500.
I gotta be honest, so quickly people's minds move subject matter when the mainstream media takes a U-turn onto something different. But there we go, enough of my moans. I don't tend to watch the mainstream media, although I do know what's being talked about.
Did you
Shout out
see
to
the
God.
slide I put up?
I'll just shout out Godzilla, then I will. One moment. Is it in Skype?
No, Master B. Yeah, Master B.
Yeah, okay.
There was some. I'll knock it back down again. There was some actually sensible I wanted to share, but if you've got slides as well, but if I could have-
No. We'll start with you, Adam. I'll just shout out the
5
super
minutes.
chat. I've got your screen presented. I'll just shout out the super chat. Then Adam. Then 10th. Okay, YouTube this when you get a chance. Says Godzilla37. Related to my last super chat. Quote: I just found out that Americans call Flicky, Wiki, Lucky, and Light Switch. End quote. I hope I haven't butchered that, but there we go. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla37. So glad I didn't let that one slide by unnoticed. Adam, go ahead. Thank you in all sincerity, Godzilla, for the super chat.
I'll try and keep it brief. Been doing a little bit of just historical digging. You know, I would say we're going back, and I'm getting back to early 1500s and looking at stuff. And what I found interesting was nobody knows how Mercator drew his maps, first and foremost. People will make the statements about how wonderful they are, because what Mercator's maps do and what people are trying to figure out how to use them at this time is they recognize that any individual bearing from any one point on the map is represented as straight lines. So east to west curves are represented as straight lines on here. But as I'm researching, it appears lots of the cartographers and mathematicians couldn't understand how this was drawn, which I found very interesting, that this thing appears to be gifted, and not my previous historical understanding of it. That was just one point. And you've got the map, and you see down in this bottom left corner here, there's this one. And what I was doing was, oh, that's the rubbish picture. You're probably all familiar with this. And this isn't using a straight line grid. This is using an arc grid. And can anybody tell me where the North Pole is on here?
Got Hyperborea.
Yeah, so where's the magnetic North Pole?
At the centre of Mount Meru in this map.
This Mount Meru. So what I've done is I've done a little bit of Latin, not all of it. If you zoom out a bit. I was reading some of these things like here, look, California Regio, and there's some really odd statements. I've translated them, so if you just bear with me, I'll go through them. The first one, that California one, is stated as a land where the Spanish roam. Here we've got Bargu. Bargu, the plains of Bargu, whose inhabitants are called Mercriti, which is now, defunct. This one was talking about different lands, but then here, and this was the more interesting ones, it reads, and just bear with me, I've lost it. I think that's the first one. So I'm assuming that's Mount Meru, but this reads as Rupis Nigra e Altissima, which reads as the black and deep rocks. And then I was checking with this historian, and he was saying, no, the maps don't even use this or reference this, and neither did the old navigators reference this as the magnetic north. What they referenced was this one here, which...
One here? You have to make your mouse movement bigger.
Okay, can you see here where my cursor is around this black rock now? I'll zoom in on it here. So on the other side of Hyperborea, in between America and, so in this straits, which is a very dubious thing on all maps. So we have here 2 points, and the first one reads Polus magnetis reflectu corpus insulae, which translates as the pole of the magnet reflecting the body of the island. And this appears to be where they did their calculations from. Sorry, that's this one. Sorry, the smaller dot underneath reads as Polus magnetis reflectu corpus insulae, the pole of the magnet reflecting the body of the island. And then this one above it, the bigger one, which looks a bit like the Meru, reads Polus magnetis reflectu insulare capitis viridis, the pole of the magnet reflecting on the islands of the Green Head.
Green
So I
head.
just found that very interesting that's that. And there was just one more thing to finish with, one more bit of translation, which I found very telling. If you see in the bottom corner here, this circle, the bottom right corner, it reads Septentrino nalium terem de scripting per gerardum mercatum cum privilegio. And that I got to translate as North of the World Scripting by Gerard Mercator with privilege. So presented with privilege, the North World Script. I was very interested to use the word script, which I found. Like I said,
That was excellent. Is there any more, Adam? That was brilliant.
That's it. I'm finished, yeah.
That was epic. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. 10th, did you want to go next?
Well, after that point, I don't think it matters now.
Come on. We've got a different point.
Well, I was on the Revolutionary War, and Adams saying that how many Brits defeated how many Americans in the recent war games?
No. I've got your slides presented.
Oh, I thought we were going over there.
No, just the media poisoning my panel. That's all that is.
Come on, 10th, keep up.
Well, which slide do you have? I put a lot up there just for everyone to glean over. I wasn't going to do a present, but I could.
Okay, I've started on the one that's got a sun top left and then elevation angle with the north and up on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So here's a flat plane that's necessary to get an angle. Obviously, you have the GP of the sun somewhere over the earth, and then you've got your triangle and your elevation angle. So this is from them. They need a plane that can work on the surface curving away. Next slide should show a cutout of the globe. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so here you say, well, how can you achieve what I just showed previously? Well, you can't do it from the surface. So you cut the globe in half and say, oh, let's use the equatorial plane. It's at 0 degrees all the way. So you got a flat horizontal. Now you can get, you see a 30-degree latitude right there. You see the vertex right there. You see straight lines. But they now are fooling you, saying it's coming from the globe. You see that curved outer arc. Well, if you go to the previous slide, if you would, that sun has a straight zenith position over the earth. That's a straight line. Can't have a curved line in a triangle. So this is the deception, to use the arc of the protractor and say something's curved when the base is flat. Next slide, it shows a azimuth angle and an altitude angle requiring a flat base. Of course, horizontal angle from the north along the horizon is the azimuth, and altitude angle, vertical angle above the horizon. Need a flat plane. Can't work with a curved surface, curved baseline. There's no way. The whole of celestial navigation is hurting the ballers. Next slide. Here's a depiction of a Navy ship trying to figure out a plane flying over, and they need a vertical plane, and they're trying to get the range and the true bearing. And so you can see the horizontal plane they have to have in order to figure this out. Well, there's no difference between the plane in the sky or a star in the sky. You still need to use the same methodology. You need a flat baseline. Next slide. So next slide is kind of a math-looking slide. You got the horizontal plane, the cutout, and they bring it up to the top. Wait a minute. I thought we were measuring from the top. No, you're measuring, all the books, tables are pre-calculated to the center of the earth where there's an equatorial plane, and now they've got you thinking they're bringing that to the top of a curved surface. Doesn't make any sense. Next slide. This is interesting. They've got that plane up there on the sphere, and then they've got the below version, the curving down of a sphere, which will disable any celestial navigation methodology in place because you can't get an angle with a curved baseline. So this is just pure nonsense. Next slide. This is a sextant. These are images from the internet, but I have the exact same one. I bought the sextant. Freiberg. I keep saying burger. I guess I get hungry. Next slide after that shows you the arc in the instrument. And for fine tuning, the micrometer drum. This is just a glorified protractor. Next slide shows the full image of it. It's great craftsmanship, this German-made sextant. The next slide shows black and white image of a navigator. This is with the bubble attachment, I believe. He's on the plane here. So he's trying to get horizontal level. Next slide, black and white image. You can see the guns and the Navy navigator and the planes flying over the level ocean, and he's sighting the horizon with something. Next slide shows from the Comet program, Navy sight, that you need sea level and an angle, and that star would have a straight position over the Earth. So there's your opposite side. There's your triangle that they're running away from. And you can see the navigator on this ship is high above the ship, but then after they do all the calculations, he's got to do dip, and he's got to bring himself and his eye level to sea level. It's got to be geometric. Next slide from the Comet program, Navy site, shows it actually the way it is. Here's our flat Earth, and here's the arc of basically a protractor, and there's the angle, and there's your triangle, the GP. I mean, it can't be any clearer. Next slide shows what a triangle is. The star would be the altitude or height. That's a 90 degree. A 90 degree requires a base to be straight. It's a perpendicular. Hypotenuse, in this case, if there was a guide, that would be the vertex where the sextant navigator's eyes would be, getting the angle. I mean, this is basic. Next slide. This is 3 circle of equal altitudes depicting 90 degree triangulation to get a fix. By measuring the angles to 3 known stars, an observer knows his location. Do you see any curved baselines there? Why would they put a 90 degree symbol box there? And why would it be from the center of a circle of equal altitude if the circle wasn't 2-dimensional flat circle where the radius has to be straight from the GP of the star to the GP of the observer? Next slide, it says it here. If we go from the middle, from this, that a navigator knows he is on a specific circle along the plane of the surface of the Earth. Can't get better than that. Of radius r, known as the line of position. He does not know his direction from this point, however. By examining a second star, a second radius can be deduced. The navigator now knows he is at one of the points where both the circular functions meet. What's a circular function? What's a circle, a 2D, right? And they cross each other at 2 points. Possible fixes. In the case that there is only one real root, he knows his position, although this is only possible if the radii are parallel. 3 circle of equal altitudes, the radii must be parallel, radius lines are straight. That's it.
Perfect. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Earth must be flat in order to navigate successfully using celestial navigation. Can't work on a sphere.
I don't like that. I like Earth is flat. Not must be. It is. And that's it. End of story.
Yeah. It doesn't matter which way you phrase it, Neil. the obvious, observable, measurable, navigatable nature of the Earth is becoming clear to anybody who's watching, and anybody who's bracing against it is merely justifying how they can claim there's a sphere dangling off a flat plane when they do this. Still a flat plane for both sides, so effectively it's game over. They want to justify how they can still have a faith in a globe dangling off the bottom of the flat plane at a single point we debunked with the black swan. They're entitled to believe that. But at this point in the discussion, if you've been here for any substantial period of time, it is just a belief in the globe now for an anti-flat earther. I can say that with confidence. You have a faith.
Well,
Yeah,
can
they
I
just-
attack?
Go on.
Sorry. I was just going to say, they just look silly doing it.
Well, can I attack that belief in the globe dangling off the bottom right quick?
Black swan. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, Eratosthenes didn't account for dip angle. He took the observer completely out of it, so there's no height of eye correction. Right? There's no horizon, none of that.
No,
All he did was measure an angle.
I see. So you're
Go
saying
ahead.
he's not doing any dip correction from a tangent point claimed to give you a tangent plane. It's just starting with and utilizing the flat plane.
Right. They can't invoke the geometric horizon in that he didn't use a horizon. He used a stick and a shadow and the flat plane we dwell atop.
Any other comments? It's been a good show today. Good live show. Please share the show. I normally do a shout out halfway through when there's about 100 people watching. Now 130 watching, but if you have shared the show, thank you very much indeed for doing so. As I say, any last comments? We have got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, this Tom Mole or whatever in chat, he's saying that can't work on a flat plane. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, I'd like for him to come on the show. Maybe he'll have the same sufferings Virus had.
Maybe. In reality, it can't work on a globe. You can't acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat in your droves today, so really do appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. But if you did want to support the channel, there is a PayPal link in the info box below this video. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Started that whole study of his based on assuming the Earth was flat, and then used parallel sun rays to say the ground was curving away to cause the shadows. Am I wrong in that?
Well, he can't invoke the parallel sun rays until he measures the angles on a flat plane.
Which I agree with you. But in their writings, why did they say he started with assuming the Earth was flat? Why would someone put that there?
Well,
Sorry.
Inferred.
can't
It's
assume the Earth
implicit.
is-
It's not an assumption. It's implicit for the angle.
Right.
What they
If the
do is
ground
they.
was-
Sorry, go on, John.
I was going to say, if the ground was curving, he wouldn't be able to acquire an angle to the sun from the surface.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Yeah, but he pre-assumed it was a globe as well. That is the claim. The claim is that he pre-assumed it was a globe, but he didn't. That I don't believe that. What he was doing was measuring part of. If you look into what he did, it was part of a flat diameter. That's what he did. It was what they call it's what That's all he did, basically. A part of a longitude line. That's what he did. That was the starting of a part of a longitude line. That's what he actually did.
He measured an angle. He measured an angle.
He did, he measured an angle, but what he actually did was a north-south distance calculation based on a straight line.
What you're trying to say, Brian, is if they didn't, or both of you in actual fact, if they didn't pepper it with the pre-assumption that he's doing this because he's presupposing a sphere, there'd be no inference that he was measuring a sphere at all. And the process is a flat Earth process. It's implicit. He's measuring an angle. So you're both talking past each other but saying the same thing, I think.
Well, there's one thing. See, this is the thing. The same caveat is put in with the Al-Biruni story, that he referred to the maths of Pythagoras. And if you look into the video I did recently, one of the videos I did recently about this subject, both of them had to refer to the maths of Pythagoras. What is Pythagoras most famous for? The right triangle. Of course they had to refer to the maths of Pythagoras. They needed to use right triangles. For the flat Earth elevation angles they were taking, and angles of whatever they were taking. Anything they're doing involves a flat plane. There's just a lot of claims after that.
It goes back to them changing a narrative to which that actually took place to suit their needs because they're ballers. But as John says and you said, you need to have that flat baseline, and it was an elevation angle.
Right. Where was his dip correction when he measured an angle from the surface?
There wasn't one.
Right. If
there
they
wasn't
want
one.
Right. That's it. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way to pry in dip correction to a geometric horizon that's been debunked by the black swan.
Yeah. Step one, measure flat Earth baseline to get an angle. That's step one. It's game over at step one. This is such a beautiful argument.
I'd just like to state that.
I was just going to say their best defence is to try and whistle past the graveyard, as QE puts it. In other words, we've already killed your argument because you've started off by measuring a flat plane. So everything you're going to do from here forward used a flat plane measurement. Doesn't matter what you infer or do thereafter. Well, they, to try and overcome that, go, let's just ignore the fact that it comes from a flat Earth, right? Let's just not mention it. Right, once we've got this angle, this is what we do to prove a sphere. You go, what's that? We're getting hung up on the angle you took. That's the bit that proves we're on a flat plane. Conclusively proves it. Now, you anti-flat earthers might want to whistle past it, but we'll just keep bringing you back. Go on, Brian, sorry.
Well, this discovery certainly explains why, like, the idea of flat Earth was basically built in with such an allergic response. Because the entire dream that they believe in is based on it. So, of course, they had to reinforce it to the maximum of their ability to avoid people from just looking there, thinking about it.
It's because there's certain aspects, especially, I think Brian was the first to mention this, right? When it comes to air travel, a lot of the paradigms of a sphere Earth break down. And when you've got the descriptions in terms of aviation safety, making it explicit to the person who's reading it, that don't consider the ground to be falling away from you, a void being left in its place. Because if you head towards that void that on a sphere would fall away at 8 inches per mile squared, you'll hit the ground. So, better consider it flat. Then you won't end up hitting the ground that hasn't fallen away from you 8 inches per mile squared. So in terms of aviation, they detail it as a flat, non-rotating surface. So, it only takes a couple of people to get hold of that, and they just straight away hold it up as a proof if there wasn't some barrier already in place with controlled opposition laid out, because that's the actual Earth we're lying about. You've got to put some measures in place to stop that from happening. So if somebody does come across an aviation description that says, consider Earth non-rotating and flat, it just gets immediately ridiculed. Well, they've said considered. Didn't you see the weasel word? Considered? Yeah, just because it's easier. Doesn't mean it's not a sphere, though, and you're a muppet for thinking it's flat. And the focus will be on you're a muppet for thinking it's flat. Not, oh, that's an interesting point. NASA think it's flat. It's just you're a muppet. You're saying it's flat. Considered.
Well, that's the difference in the elevation argument, though. The elevation angle argument. It has to be flat. Not considered. It must be.
Yeah, but I'm talking about NASA phraseology in handbooks.
It has to be flat for airplanes too. That's the thing. That's what they're admitting. It has to be flat and motionless. Otherwise, they don't work.
Well, what sextant? Hold on. What type of sextant do they use on an airplane?
Bubble sextant.
And what's a bubble on the level tell you?
That it's horizontal and level.
And what's the parallel underneath have to match?
Horizontal level.
There you go.
Yeah.
So not only do they have us to fight with the housekeeping questions, they got the whole of celestial navigation now as our partner and their enemy. They're denying triangles. They're denying bubble levels. They're denying everything. They're scrambling.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say a few minutes ago. That guy who said some Bobby or something, some name of some guy that Tent mentioned in the chat said something like, "Did such a thing with the sextant doesn't work on a flat earth," right? What that is that, and this is to, I'm saying this now, and I hope as many of the ballers that are listening to this take this into account. The information that you're getting is coming from people like Proto Tad and maybe Bob the Science Guy and different people. But it's all information that's coming from your people. We're getting our information from celestial navigation. You're not getting it from there. You're getting a convoluted, mutated version of the truth from people on your own side. So you're learning about celestial navigation based on what you're given and shown by these people, who you consider more learned on the subject. But these people can't come in and deal with the most basic argument we have, which is an elevation angle, because they want to look straight past that. So if you all keep looking straight past the elevation angle and start going to great circle routes and other nonsense like that, that's all mathematical only, then you'll never actually understand celestial navigation. You know, that all your information is coming from people on your own side who either haven't learned it correctly, right, and don't know it right, the basics I'm talking about, or they're lying to you.
They need
to
that to
point,
be,
Brian.
they need it to be laid down in that manner so that when people come and attack us, that's flat earthers, with a misapprehension of what celestial navigation does, their bastardized version they've been taught that you've just described isn't actually celestial navigation. So hopefully we can get engaged in an argument that isn't actually about celestial navigation, which is who they're fighting against if they disagree with what we lay down. Much better to have their version be argued about with us, and our version being the response to their version, which isn't celestial navigation. So I'll just summarise once more. If they want to challenge what we actually say here, and what we actually say is, you can't get an elevation angle from a globe Earth. That's basically what we're saying. Go and ask your fundy where he gets an elevation angle from a globe Earth if you're getting it from these Muppets, and watch how quickly they draw out a flat plane. With a sphere something in relation to it, but they'll draw out a flat plane. That's what they'll do. And if that doesn't set off alarm bells, then I don't know what does.
Well, we
There's no
experienced it.
actual need now for any other discussions on anything like eclipses, star movement, anything. That there's no need to discuss any of this anymore. Just let's discuss celestial navigation and how it's achieved, and that is it.
To that point, this is where, on that one show that Proto came in with that slide of his that he did trigonometry in a weird way by saying you can't get that distance doubling the co-altitude. Well, no one does that in celestial navigation. They take one single sighting to create one circle of equal altitude. And then if they do another one, that's a separate one. And they both each give a different co-altitude. And so he's playing a little trickery. But the key point of that whole debate was when we were showing slides of actual celestial navigation protocol, so to say, the methodology, the official methodology. Proto's response was, I disagree with that. That's not the way it's done. We just read it. It's from your own books. It's from people who do it. I mean, this is where the ballers have to realize they're being lied to by these front men. I'm sorry, but you guys have flat earth debate and the whole, and I'll say it again, of celestial navigation is our second team. And you're attacking them?
Yeah, what Proto Tad actually did with his second angle is his second angle, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not an elevation angle. As in, the initial first part of it could be where he's just taking the 40 degrees. But what he does after that, what that actually would be used for, right, would be him knowing the height of the object that he's taking an angle to. And because he knows the actual height, that's why he gave the star the 3,000 nautical mile height, right? If you were to do that with a mountain or a car or anything, right, and you know the actual height of the object you're taking an angle to, then your angular size then that you will get from your angle will tell you the distance to the object. That's what that's used for. Nothing to do with celestial navigation. Celestial navigation do not assert heights to anything. They don't use the internals of the angle, they use the external roof of the depression angle. Go on, Ted.
Well, that's what you guys and Adam and everybody broke down so clearly, is there's different trigonometric functions. And he went from the one being used for celestial navigation to another one and tried to cloud up everything. When he got caught for it, haven't heard his response since, but he got caught for doing it the wrong way, because the right way destroys their position.
Well, it's very simple. Sorry, John, just leave me. Oh, go on, you go, I go after.
I was just going to say the way he did it proved that my kitchen can't be flat.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing about it is that if I take this is something I've said over and over again. I don't know if it's really sinking in out there concerning what he did. If I take a 40-degree angle to my car, right, and I know the exact height of my car, or to my kitchen table, and I know the exact height of my kitchen table, or to my house, and I know the exact height of my house, that would be three completely different distances to those three objects that I can calculate for, because I'm using the actual height in relation to the angular size, or the angular height that I'm taking, right? In celestial navigation, 40 degrees, I could get using that type of trigonometry, I can get a 40-degree angle to my car, to my kitchen table, and to my house, depending on just being at the right distance from them, right? But the distances I will be from the house, car, and table will all be different for me to get a 40-degree angle. But in celestial navigation, with a correct elevation angle, 40 degrees will always give you a distance, because it will be 40 from the 90 will always be 50 times 60 nautical miles. It will never be some other distance. Whereas trigonometry using the internals, 40 degrees, I could get a 40-degree angle to a children's toy on my kitchen table. You know, and it would make it 2 foot away from the children's toy. That is not celestial navigation. They don't do that. They use the elevation, the roof of the depression angle to give them their measured distance on the ground in nautical miles. 40 degrees will always give you a 3,000 nautical mile distance, because it's 40 from 90. It will never not in celestial navigation. But using the internals of the angle, you'll get all different distances. So if anyone out there was cloudy on this, or maybe Proto does have a point. No, Proto is a bullshitter. And he's good at it.
You just need to accept that you can't obtain an elevation angle from a curved baseline. That's the first thing. And then from the luminary to the GP is a parallel line. and then from the GP back to the observer could be a distance of 5,000 miles, and that has to be flat. Simple as that.
So, Brian, are you saying that the 40-degree angle to the kitchen table where you might have your supper on is 3,000 miles away?
Well, according to Proto, it would have to be.
Well,
You know what I mean?
You'd be hungry.
Yeah, well, there you go. You'd be pretty hungry. But see, this is the thing. What people don't realize is that with his diagram, the first thing he did was a correct elevation angle. And he did it using a flat plane, proving the very thing he was trying to disprove. So that's only something like a flat earther with you. As in,
Well, not only that,
why would he prove that? It's like, I think the guy is possibly a flat earther. I don't see how he was a baller.
Not only that, but in that first one, he shows a right angle triangle.
But that's my point. His first angle is an elevation angle. He shows how it happens and how it's done on a flat plane. Then he goes on to say, that can't happen. But you just did it. You know what I mean? It's like me painting a wall red and saying, there's no way anyone can paint that wall red. You just painted it red. Do you know what I mean?
But that's the proof in the pudding I'm talking about. So in order to deny celestial navigation in that slide, he has to agree with it on the first elevation angle, and he shows a right angle triangle. And then when we show a statement that this is the way it works with right angle triangles, he now denies it, but he just showed it in his own slide. That's what happens when you lie.
Here's a chance, sorry. He's been still chancing it online on Discord and stuff. I find him kind of amusing. But why any baller still goes to him for information after after that diagram, it means that they're not looking for honesty, they're looking for confirmation bias. Because he was proven to be either completely incorrect or a total liar. It's one or the other.
No, I
So why
don't
would
agree
you go
with you,
back to that
Brian.
person?
These guys are
Right.
definitely on the quest for truth. Will I ever give you the impression they're on an affirmation bias path? No, no, no.
Yeah, they are the most honest, truthful group of people I ever met. Not. If you only talk about great circle routes, sorry, go on.
Would it be safe to say, can you obtain an elevation angle from a declining horizon?
No, that would be a horizon that's falling away from you 8 inches per mile squared, a la the curve of the Earth. No, baseline's got to be straight, flat. It's defined. When you acquire a horizontal, flat plane measurement, that's what you're doing when you get an elevation angle. There's no way around it.
And globes don't have declining horizons. They have a curved surface. So.
Right, but I'm only asking because we as a flat Earth, it's level. So the opposite of level, would be a decline from that position, which the globe Earth needs. So it would be a declining horizon from your position because it needs to fall away from you, X amount per mile.
You could never have a 90 with a decline. Even if they had a slope, it's no good to them. That's why they use
90
the
kills
slopes of
them.
water. Yeah, the decline, the dip angle is a decline. That's why they have to do a height of void correction for it, because the decline doesn't work.
It's their own slides. It's their own images that put the 90 in the box there. They're telling you it's flat. And then they're showing pictures of a sphere. And it's up for you to say, that's a paradox. That's contradiction. Something's wrong here. How come you measure it flat? Everything is flat. And then you say, I live on a sphere. This is where you, the person, must use critical thinking and say, can they say both things and be right? Can they two opposite thoughts and be still right? This is where the ballers are. They have sometimes more than two opposite thoughts. I mean, they have variations of opposite thoughts in between, but it can't be black when it's white, and it can't be white when it's black. They can't think that way.
Right, and dip correction isn't for the curve of the horizon. It's for your observed height down back to level.
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it is a slope from your eye line down to the horizon, and then you correct that slope with the height of height correction to make it a horizontal. So that's why a slope would never work. Because if a slope would work, well, it wouldn't, because you can't use a 90 with a slope. There's no 90s don't have slopes. They require a 90, and that means that the baseline, when they do the height of height correction, that horizontal line continues on from the observer to wherever the GP is, which can be up to over 5,000 nautical miles away.
And that's just one part of the circle with one observer. Another observer the same distance from the other side is also 5,400 nautical miles away. So a total of 10,800 nautical miles of what, Brian?
Horizontal flat baseline measured.
Well, then by globe.
Exactly. I mean, our opposition got hung up on things like great circle routes, right? Which are all mathematical. All they are is straight lines across a flat plane. That's all a great circle route is. But there's no great circle routes going across the South Pacific. Why? Because no one's traveling across the South Pacific. Because it's not an easy distance to go. You know, the great circle routes are north-south, majority of them, most of them. They claim that the equator is a great circle route. But how many people travel the equator? They don't. Planes don't fly around the equator. They fly in straight lines, not curves.
Well, if there was that, then the lady with the drink cart can never come out, because on takeoff, they don't serve drinks. On landing, they don't serve drinks. They only serve drinks when they're level flight. So if they're always on this arc, that tray with the wheels and the drinks, when those transparent plastic glasses come, the level of the water wouldn't be equal to the level of the rim of the plastic glasses. It always is, because they're flying level.
Yeah. They fly level and horizontal. They fly, the plane itself is a couple of degrees angle, but at the front, at the nose, a couple of degrees angle, 3 to 5 degrees for a commercial airliner at cruising speed, above horizontal. But they have to be to fly horizontal, because they can't get lift otherwise. Once you go bring the wings, regardless, even if it's a camber wing, once you bring it below zero, you start losing lift. That's it. What happens then? You know, you become a boat, don't you? In the sky, you just go down.
So Discord is empty. They're all done this week. They're out of ammo for the globe, I take it. No response?
What can they say at this point? Agree that they take the measurements from a flat plane, but it's still a globe?
Yeah, I can see why they're not coming in.
I hope they don't. I can't stay anyway.
They keep trying to crowbar a tangent point in desperately. That's been debunked.
And not even explain why they want a tangent point and what it's for in the first place. A tangent plane, a flat plane, we need them. We don't need tangent curves. Nobody in geometry ever needed to come up with that. Nobody needed to use it. ever. Why? Why don't you need tangent curves, but you do need tangent planes?
Well, if I can argue about whether it's a right angle triangle or not on the other side of the angle, I can ignore that the angle required a flat plane, right?
Yeah.
Didn't Virus just try that? And then he had to admit that he just draws another straight line.
Virus always does that. Yes, correct.
Right.
Why would he need, John, why would he need to draw another straight line from the previous straight line?
It was an admission that you can't get an angle from a curved adjacent.
For all the globe people out there who are listening to this and will listen to this, people on your side that are arguing the stupid argument that the opposite side of the elevation angle doesn't exist, which means the elevation angle is not a triangle, which is ridiculous, right? The people who are pushing that either are telling total lies or they don't know what they're talking about. Because the opposite side, as we've shown, Tent Man has shown every day, the opposite side, literally every day for months now, the opposite side of that triangle, right? That elevation angle. So you have the hypotenuse, you have the adjacent, and the opposite. The opposite side is the zenith from the GP of the celestial body. That's the opposite side. So if you believe that there is no opposite side to an elevation angle on a flat plane, it means you don't have correct information. It means you need to do more research. It means you need to stop listening to anyone that's telling you that. That is incorrect. That's not from a flat earther, that's from celestial navigation. And anyone who's telling you other than that either don't know what they're talking about or they're lying to you.
Yeah, and they're using a red herring too, because it's still not addressing, the flat baseline that you utilize,
Yeah, but they're begging the question also because in their model, their elevation angles do not have an opposite.
I beg to differ. Can you go to Master B, Nathan?
Yeah.
I'm talking about in the globe now, Tent.
No, I know. I beg to differ.
Got Proto-Thad's example. Is that what you wanted up?
Yes. Proto did us a favor here. See that 40? Yeah, 65-degree angle. Everyone, do you see the 65-degree angle?
Yeah, the one that. This is how this started. Brian said he proved the flat Earth. Maybe he's a flat earther because the flat Earth angle measurement, that's the 65-degree angle, is the only one he's taking to measure to then back engineer. So Brian's postulation was that he's a flat earther as a result of this angle.
Yes, but I want to address this from a different point of view. Who gave us the slide?
Proto-Thad?
That 65-degree angle, does it have 3 sides?
Yeah.
Is one of them the opposite with a 90?
Yeah.
So how can they deny it when he gives it?
Yeah, take it. Yeah, it's got to be flat. Their example, their challenges, they start with a flat plane. Been saying this for about a month.
The very slides I show what he just showed. They fight us and they gravitate, pun intended, to his. These are delusional people.
But why they deny that the elevation angle has an opposite is not just to avoid speaking about the adjacent, the baseline, the horizontal. It's because on the globe, their tangent planes are never going to be in the horizontal to where the GP of the celestial body is on the globe. So their elevation angle off a tangent plane, which is all imagination, will never meet the zenith from the GP to the celestial body. So they'll never have an opposite. So the fact that they're even trying that, which is totally anti what celestial navigation say and do and show, means that they have to be either complete idiots who haven't done their research, or they're total liars.
With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hitting the PayPal link and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.